Colin Howard again. And then we've got a destruction in the TARDIS special with some illustrations by Martin Proctor, the Canadian. And then The Awakening will be the one for 172, a nice Peter Davison one, the short one, with Peter Warbank doing the cover, who I thought would be here actually.
And interviewing Terry on the stage, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Alan Stevens. With Alan in. Alan Stevens here, as you can see, is actually playing one of the spider dons from Planet of the Darks. He's turned invisible, that means. Where is he, Mitch?
I'll go get him.
More
like in the bar.
In the meantime, Terry?
Well, you have to know how they're going to be performed, you have to know the mechanics and the logistics of what we're going to do. I mean, if they want to fall off the top of the mountain, they want to do it at the top of the mountain. You've got to come up with cartons or airbags taken up to the top of the mountain. So you have to refine it. And the cars will come up. The whole convoy, hundreds of people going to work, the convoy will come up, but it will slow down all the time. Go, and of course, and this went on for about 3/4 of an hour. Then there was a lull, which I think the helicopter team was sort of getting ready to move. And this one car was obviously late. There's no car. A little bit like that. The car slowed down. The window came down. And they shut out. That window went down. On the floor. Good job. It fell down.
Have you only got any records, like for instance, falling off the first building this time? Because there's one story in Inferno where some guy fell off down on gas station.
That's not very high. America's got 300 feet where they are.
It was a bit of a rebel.
Ladies and gentlemen, Terry Walsh being interviewed by Alan Stevens.
The late Alan Stevens.
The late Alan Stevens, why is he died? Can I just give you a quick review of this afternoon's running order? Lunch next, everyone. We'll reconvene here.
Is it? Get the hang of this flash one day.
Jacqueline will be interviewed by Alan Stevens.
I don't think it was a decision that I made, it's one that was made for me. And I believe that strongly. If you have a talent, it dictates your life, you don't dictate it. Okay?
Getting right into subject like 7, how did you actually get involved with the series?
I was working at the English Speaking Theatre in Vienna, and I was phoned up by my agent and offered an episode in a Greek series called Blade 7, which hadn't yet been screened. And it was rare in my career to walk straight out of one job into another, which is what this would have meant, so I accepted it very gratefully, and off I went and remained for 4 years.
Now initially the character wasn't meant to be a long-running character, is that true?
She was originally only written for one episode, but I think David Maloney, who was the producer of it, saw the potential of the character, and she was developed and stayed on for 4 years.
What were the initial guidelines written down for the character? I mean, was it intended to be played by a woman?
No, the interesting thing about it was that Terry Nation told me he finds it very difficult to write for women. And so when he started writing the first script, Servalan was a man. Until halfway through the script, when he woke up one morning and decided she was in fact going to be a woman. And I found that very interesting. I think it gave her the wonderful complexity that she had.
Were there any certain guidelines written down of what we should do in the character?
Well, when I started, for those of you who saw the series, I had very short hair. And the producer, because she was the Supreme Commander, wanted to dress her in a jackboots and safari suit and a helmet. And I said, well, if you do that with this haircut, you might as well cast a man. And I thought it was important, and I do most of the time, never to go for the obvious, but to contrast it. And I think having a woman who was that dangerous, who she was out of a 1940s movie, and was very feminine, was quite interesting.
Is that the reason why you're wearing white to contrast with Stephen Wright's black?
I wore white at first, it was probably rather silly, but I thought, no, don't put the baddie in black because it's too obvious. So they put me in white, and I then decided that black actually suited me better. So I changed her into black later on, legitimately so, and stayed in black.
For the first season, you were mainly studio band, but in the final story, you did actually go on location. Did you enjoy that? And where was it exactly?
I have no idea. We went to quite a few locations, a lot of chalk pits. But I just love going on location, I'll go anywhere.
You may not be able to answer this question, probably got to know this such a long time ago. But there's a scene from Borat, the last episode of the first season, when it's shot in the studio and Stephen Gray was never actually seen from the waist up. Is there any particular reason for that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So you were contracted for the first season. Did your contract actually, I mean, when you initially came over to the first part and then they offered it an extension, did the contract only last at the end of the first season, or was it like Gareth Thomas, actually 2 seasons incorporated?
No, as far as I know, other than perhaps Gareth, who they needed to go all the way through because it was Blake 7, our contracts renewed after each season.
So when you first came into the show, you came into episode 6. Was the show being recorded? Were they actually aware that Servan was going to appear in episode 6 when they actually did it? Do you think you know before the series was being created?
I have no idea because not reaching it until episode 6, I was not involved in the previous episodes or any of the initial format.
Okay. Where did Stephen Gray leave later?
Why? I think you probably have to ask Stephen that, but I think he was offered work outside the series, and I think, from what I understand, quite a few smart actors had told him that he shouldn't be doing something like Blake 7, and he should go do proper work at the Royal Shakespeare Company. And I think that's what he went and did.
Why did you stay on?
Why did I stay on? I stayed on because I was enjoying the show. It's rare, in my experience, to have a regular job and therefore financial security. And it's nice to taste that once in a while. And it was an opportunity to develop a character, and I was having a lot of fun, and I think it was the fun that primarily motivated me. It usually is in everything I do.
Again, going back to 1978, which sexism was around then, he's still around now. But we were all daunted by the fact that you were taking on this quite radical and severe character.
Was I daunted by it? No, I wasn't, because I've always been cast as quite daunting characters. I don't know why. I have another friend, an actor called Ronald Lacey, who some of you may know, who's always playing very strange characters, weird characters. And he's one of the most gentle people I know. And it's interesting that people who are gentle often get cast as quite terrifying characters.
Season 2, your first story of season 2 was a story called Weapon. This introduced Brian Crenshaw as Travis. How did you find it difficult relating to a same character but a different actor?
I didn't find that difficult. I just felt extremely sorry for the actor who has to come in and play another actor's part. So I sympathised with the actor's problem, and I actually thought it was a bit of a silly decision. Of course, the public knew that Travis wasn't Travis. I think it's an aspect of being a woman. I think she was a very complex woman and a very damaged woman. And like a lot of people who are extremely vulnerable, in order to protect themselves, they present their persona to the world, an extremely convincing presentation of being extremely hard. And it's not, it's to project a vulnerability that's in fact very painful. It's a way of coping. And I think that was actually the key to Servala. I know the writers felt, to Aspacha particularly, that she was a psychopath. And I thought about this a lot. And I think, for me, a psychopath is, if you have a very high integrity, and that is threatened, if you are very hurt and very brutalized by life, if you have a great sensitivity as well, there is a very fine line between high integrity and total immorality. And I think that's the line she walked. And if you cross that line to become immoral, then you do have the potential to be a very good psychopath. And I think that she had that in her, but it was through extreme pain. And you can imagine that, as I'm talking to you now, I obviously gave this character a great deal of thought and went into it very deeply. And I wasn't in a series that was equipped to deal with it in that way. I personally find what makes people tick totally fascinating. I think that's what we're all here to learn. And I don't think standing by a console and saying standing by 10 is actually where it's at. But those are the battles that I fought.
When Stephen Gray was Travis, he played it very much as an archetypal villain. When they brought Brian Craig in, they saw that they could sort of deepen the character, they changed the actor so they made the character more human. Did you find that the emphasis shifted from Travis being the main villain to Servalan being the main villain, where she was more manipulative, and where Brian Craig really became more of the anti-hero?
Yes, it did shift to Servalan. The difference between Brian Croucher and Stephen Gray as actors is that Stephen is a heavy and Brian is not. He's a lightweight despite his height and his build. And Travis had been played by a heavy. Stephen was very much a heavy. And so Brian couldn't continue that because he didn't have the equipment. He was a different kind of actor and had to find his own way to play it.
Travis was eventually blown away in Star 1. How do you think Servalan actually salvaged Travis? Because she did do a terrible thing, put him on trial and stuff like that. She was sadly he died.
I think there would be a regret, the loss of a playmate, the loss of someone to spar with.
Yeah.
Although intellectually I don't think Travis was an equal able.
There was a lot of scenes, for instance, when you were talking to Travis or anyone, you were sort of on your hand up and down. Was this part of you, or was this actually?
That was, yes, all that was me, because if you're just about to kill someone, but you're doing that. I remember one scene I had with someone I was just going to shoot him and I had a gun and I just trailed the gun down his body, which I thought was deeply erotic, and so did he. I don't know what you thought.
You didn't serve on a sexual character.
Oh, incredibly sexual. We are all extremely sexual. It's the life impulse. It's what we're all here for, and it's what gets us into tremendous damage and trouble, because they that control us don't want us to realise the power that we do have. But I think Servalan had the courage to know the power that she had and to wield it, not necessarily always successfully or admirably, but she was in touch with her power. Tanith Lee, who wrote 2 episodes, wonderful writer, wonderful woman. She wrote Sarcophagus and she wrote Sam. And she's a highly intelligent woman. You probably, a lot of you have read her books, which are quite wonderful. And she wrote an episode for me, which was Sand, which is based on experiences in my own life, where she tried to show far more dimensions and make her a human being other than a cardboard cut out of a caricature.
Sort of explain the background of why.
Absolutely, indeed.
That was due to a lost love, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, that Servalan had been in love when she was 18, and he had died. And that loss and that betrayal had made her unable to cope with any more of the losses that life she felt would give her. And in fact, we are all destined for betrayal of some kind, be it through a love, a country, an ideal, because it seems that it's only through loss and betrayal and the pain that comes with it that we can learn and grow.
Betrayal featured very heavily in Blake's, specifically in the episode Rumours of Death. What did you think of that episode?
Oh, I loved Rumours of Death. I just remember being chained to a wall. And having a great deal of fun. But I don't remember much more about it. I just thought that was great fun to do.
Aftermath, the first story of season 3, sort of introduced the Servalan-Avon relationship. How much was this writer and how much was this Paul Dower and Jacqueline Pearce?
A lot of it was Paul Dower and Jacqueline Pearce. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier about I find the relationships between people far more interesting. And when that series is set in a spaceship, you never see where the loos are, you never see anything that relates to being a human being. And if you block out all those things that are part of our humanity, then you don't get real people. And I think it is the duty of an actor to be as real as possible.
So you saw Blake 7 really as real people in a fantastic situation?
Oh, that's a wonderful way to put it. That's exactly how I saw it. I wish you'd written scripts. I think they should have teamed up. She would have betrayed him if she felt he wasn't her match, because then he would be no use to her. She wanted a man who was her match. She wanted to meet her counterpart.
Servalan, again in season, she became, initially she was Supreme Commander, then she was President, and then she became Commissioner Sleer. Why did they have this shift sort of down several grades and you sort of became another character?
I think a lot of it was to do with politics and personalities within the BBC. I think a lot of those people found the character of Servalan quite threatening because she was a woman. And they were getting letters in from the public, which was very kind to say that they actually believed that my character could, in fact, achieve the position that she had. They believed that character. And I think the people that were writing the scripts and making the decisions felt very threatened by that, which is a great pity instead of celebrating it and developing it. That's really what happened.
You don't think Servalan was at all a threat to women, or perceiving, or men perceiving in a vicious or violent way?
No,
Or threatening way?
no, I felt that women adored Servalan, and men were fascinated by her. But no, I never felt that women were threatened by her. They thought, good on you, girl. You know?
You describe season 4 as rocky. What did you actually mean by that?
The magic had gone, that egos had taken over, and it shouldn't be about that. I know I am an idealist, but I do believe very strongly that if you have a gift and it's God-given, then you have to honour that and you have to transcend your ego and do the best you can for the gift. You are its servant, not its master, and if you try to become its master, it will destroy you. And it should have been about the good of the whole, and it wasn't. It was about people wanting to shine, so it fell apart.
The penultimate episode was Warlord, directed by our favourite director, whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce.
Victor's.
Thank you. And again, Servalan betrayed a lot of people and destroyed Zen and base, and then disappeared, leaving a bomb on board and a guy called Zukan ship. He did not appear in the final episode.
I know.
You were upset by that?
Yes, I was. I did take it very personally.
Do you think it was meant personally?
Yes, I think that's why I took it personally. I don't think things aren't meant personally unless they are malicious, and if they are malicious, then it's personal. And I felt there was a slight maliciousness. They knew it would hurt me.
That's interesting. Sorry.
I'd be very discreet, aren't I?
So, I don't want to push a point, but is this from the writer or the producers at the time? Because there was a shift in the producer, wasn't there? Earl Armour took over in season 4.
Yes. I liked Leo very much. I loved working with him as a director because Leo, in his imagination, was always in Hollywood. And so he knew how to use close-ups. But as I say, by the time it got to the end of the 4th season, it had disintegrated. I was very ill. I ended up in hospital afterwards. So my perceptions of it were probably exaggerated. Not too much, I don't think. But that's really, I think, all I can say.
Having said that, although you didn't appear in the final episode, by not appearing there, you actually survived, and very few members of the cast have actually lived through the series.
Yes, it's very interesting that when something is done to you maliciously, it then often rebounds on the person that did it and ends up to your advantage. Turner, who I adore, heard me laughing in the canteen one day. I said, one day I'm going to have that girl in my show. And I think when I came to do it, the original actress, they contracted somebody else, and she had to leave for some reason. And the director, bless his heart, thought of me and sent me the script and asked if I'd like to do it. And I hadn't worked for quite a long time, and I'm not actually a science fiction fan, despite being in Blade 7, and I'd never seen Doctor Who. And it was being shot in Spain, and I said, yes, I'd love to do it. And I had a wonderful time. They were so kind to me. Colin Baker was my doctor, and Pat Trudden, who was so lovely, and they were so kind, and I adored Fraser Hyde. And it really made up for the unkindness, really, that had destroyed the last series of Blade 7. They were so welcoming and so welcoming, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for Doctor Who.
Shizini of the Franzine Greek.
Yes.
Did you ever have trouble pronouncing that name? I certainly did.
Shizini, I know. No, the problem with that part for me was that because they'd contracted another actress, they'd already made the costume and they'd already made the wig. And they put this wig on me, which you didn't see because it got lost in transit, thank God. I looked like Elizabeth Taylor then, doing Tranquil. I cannot tell you how appalling I looked. And we arrived in Spain, and the makeup lady came up to me and said, "Oh, Jacqueline," she said, "but a dreadful tragedy, we've lost your wig." I thought, hallelujah. So they were in Seville, they literally had to take me to a barber in Seville to make another wig. The costume was appalling, I don't know what I'd come as. And we were working in temperatures of about 110 and wearing this wig that was stuck on the makeup, and the costume was absolute hell. But we did have a lot of fun.
What did you think of the script? Because that was written by Robert Holmes, who wrote a number of playing 7 episodes, including Gambit.
Well, the thing is, that the reason I have difficulty with science fiction is because I don't actually understand what it's about. So it's very difficult for me to say it's a good script, particularly if it's dealing with the mechanics of science fiction, all the things that most of the fans I've been incredibly knowledgeable about. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's hard when I'm reading a script to know if it's actually very good, unless it's one like Sand, which is dealing with emotions. But that's where my strength, if I have any, comes in. But all I know, it was great fun. I think the others used to moan quite a lot, but it was all right.
Going back again to the season 2 Blake 7 episode, Gambit, I understand that wasn't very popular at the time. Do you remember anything about that episode? When you wore red and...
Oh, why wasn't it popular?
I don't know. I was talking to David Maloney, and he didn't particularly like it because he wasn't very specific about it. He wasn't happy with the fantastic element of it.
Right, it was George Spenton Foster. It was quite outrageous and over the top, and I would think David didn't quite know how to handle that, and felt a bit threatened by how far George would go, which would have been on into the clear blue distance. Accepted it. But I think they copped out in the end because it should have been filmed in close-up, and you should have seen. I mean, she was not human. She was doing something that wasn't human. Somebody's blood, and that should have been and could have been if they had the courage. Very powerful, but they do cop out.
Well, actually, was it you were licking off your hand?
Blood.
It was blood.
No. I don't know what it was.
The next series you appeared in was, I can't really describe it as a children's series.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It was called Moondog.
Yes.
And I hate that part of it.
The director just phoned up my agent and asked me if I'd be interested in doing it. And I didn't think I would be, because I didn't think I wanted to do a children's series, because I didn't think there would be much in it that I would want to do. And then I read the script, and I could never understand how they got away with showing it to children. That there's been...
There's been talk of Blake 7 revival in...
You were filmed or a sequel series, Terry Nation's trying to push it.
They've talked about it for a long time. Whether or not it will happen, I don't know. It would be quite interesting. Terry did ask me some time ago if I would be interested in doing it, and I said at that time, there's no way I would do it for the BBC. And I would like to do it as a film. I'd like to develop it with proper writers, proper sets, and real money spent on it. And I'm probably living in a dream world.
You had a greater influence on the series. Chris Bench, the script editor, or David Young, the producer, or Terry Nation,
Well, Terry wasn't there. His initial impact, he had the greatest impact, and I wish he'd stayed. I suppose ultimately it was David and Chris.
That was a good thing.
No.
Next question for the audience. A book called Surround the Child.
No, I haven't thought about writing about just Sutherland. I've considered writing myself. I've started writing. Recently, 3 months ago, I completely changed my life. I did something I've always wanted to do, which is go and live in Cornwall. And I think I'm going to take a year off and I'm going to write. And I started writing the book. And I thought this is a bit silly, because what I should do is try and combine my, if I have any talent for writing, with any talent I might have for acting. And I think what I'm going to do is write a one-woman show.
What actually would the subject of this one-woman show be like?
Me. I think, actually, for quite a few years, without realising that I've been barking up the wrong tree. I love acting, I love my work, it's something I care about totally passionately. But working as an actress, one is very limited. One is working with other people's materials, playing other characters. And perhaps what you're saying doesn't necessarily correspond with your own personal feelings. It's a bit like being a language interpreter. A friend of mine did that for some years. And a lot of them go a bit funny after a while, particularly if they're working in the field of politics. A suitcase and I went to Cornwall. And because I love Cornwall, and I'm a great believer, if you follow your truth and go towards that which you love, life will take care of you. I've got completely off the subject here. If I'm boring you rigid, just say so. And I did another thing which I've always wanted to do, which is to work as an artist's model. And I do life work, which means it's nude, because every artist has to get back, no matter what work he does, to the essential, which is the human body. And I haven't met many painters before in my life, and now having done so, I find them the most remarkable breed of men and women. Only 2% of painters make their living. And to throw in your lot takes great courage. And I was talking to a painter the other day who's very good and very poor. And unlike me, you know, if I don't make it as an actress when I die, then I know that that's it. I have my chance, I didn't make it happen, whatever. But my chance for immortality on that level is gone because there wouldn't be the body of work to leave behind. I think they were both damaged people, and damaged people find it very hard to trust because they are unable to trust themselves, so they constantly test the people that they're with, and it's ultimately self-defeating. They just reinforce their belief that no one is to be trusted. In order for Servalan and Avon to have achieved any kind of salvation, they had to heal. And I don't think the way the series was then, they would have achieved that. I think they would have damaged each other.
Unfortunately, I'm not quite sure what's happening next, but I think there's the Chris Leach panel, probably about 10 minutes back, something 10 minutes back. Is that right?
I don't know how many people have contracted me.
Then decided to go freelance and set up real-time pictures, mainly to make corporate films and training films. But he'd also had this idea to do a series of video shows called Mythmakers, which were interviews with people who had been on screen or behind the screen.
Sorry.
Nice one.
More mechanically minded than me. In fact, it's about the same height as me. Somebody said it was better looking than me, but I do disagree with that. Look at this. If you want an absolute joke, take a look at this gentleman's shirt, the Nestle Rugby Club. Now look here, you, Clementine, you and I are going to fall out if you carry on like this. It's what? Salvador. I'm terribly sorry, Clementine. Am I forgiven? Salvador Dalek, you have my permission to carry out your last statement. Man with very stupid coat. Oh, okay then. I see the patience hasn't improved. I see your patience has not improved, you stupid tin thing. Right, where are you going to sit or stand or whatever Daleks do for this then? Where are you going to stand then? Are you going to introduce him, Salvador, or am I? You're going to stand straight in my way. Salvador. I shall give you a hand. Most powerful creatures in the universe, nobody can bloody hear them. You stay there. Salvador?
Yes? Speak. I am speaking.
Was that better?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Right then, are they ready?
I think they are.
I am about to introduce my daddy, the boss.
do, ladies and gentlemen, I shall hand over Peter Miles, Michael Wisher, and Salvador Dalek.
Is that all right to sit next to each other?
Please.
I think so.
About you, Peter, and you can control yourself.
You shouldn't nobody, enemy or friend, should go back that far in my life. How dare you, sir? Going back before, I mean, Lulu hadn't even got into middle school then. I mean, it's really ridiculous.
How far are
Question
you?
now.
How far are you prepared to go back? At Backhouse?
Yesterday?
Dr. Lawrence?
No, I go back to, must I say the year? No.
A convention trust?
My first job was in Alice in Wonderland and Alice in the Looking Glass at the Birmingham Repertory Theatre opposite New Street Station in heavy causes.
Who did you play?
Must I say that too?
It wasn't Alice, was it?
Wishful thinking will get you nowhere.
First the Griffin, then the thing in the Lobster Quadrille, the Dodo, then the Griffin, and then the White King.
Well, I heard the last bit, but I didn't hear the first bit.
How did your association with Doctor Who come about, Michael?
They were in a panic. It was wonderful, really. I was sitting at home, and I received this telephone call, and the people who'd done the Dalek voices before were suddenly unavailable. They probably got a proper job or something like that. And I received this phone call, and it said, Michael, you do impersonations, don't you, now and again? And I said, well, yes, occasionally, stupid enough. And they said, can you do a Dalek? And I said, of course I could! And they said, you've got the job. Be up here in 25 minutes. And I think the only reason they asked me was that I was only 25 minutes away on a bike. And I got up there in 25 minutes, and I rented one of the first Dalek stand-ins there. When, that was just before I met Roy Skelton, who also was a regular Dalek voice. And so over the next 11 years, I did quite a lot of Dalek voices. It was a nice way of earning a living. A bit desperate.
Agreed. I understand that Roy Skelton was originally tipped to play Davros by Creator. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely true. But Roy was too busy making money. I mean, he really didn't want to know. I suppose you know, he's responsible for Rainbow.
Bungo and Zippy?
Who was brought up on Rainbow? There you are, you see, you've got Roy Skelton to blame for that. He did all the voices, he wrote all the scripts and made himself a fortune. When they asked him to do Davros, he said, you must be joking.
Peter, do you like playing villains?
Diddle do. Diddle do.
Do?
Do, yes. Certainly, yes. The small screen, if I may put it that way, boring phrase, the small screen, the people who cast you like me as villains, because it's a very ugly word in Britain to be told, to dare to say to anybody you're versatile, as my friend here will concur. So you have to pretend you're not versatile, and then you can say you can do villains, and they love it, the people who cast you. But since 60% of my work's live, in front of audiences, that's nearly all been comedy. So there's the paradox of it all. So you've got an evil face, you play evils on the box, I suppose, because that's what it is.
Do you prefer stage to TV?
Yes, because that's where you have to work your guts out, you, the artist. Whereas on TV, it's the technician's miracle, in my opinion. My best line could be on camera 4, and camera 4 could be pointing at the scenery at the time.
Oh really? That's what I wanted to know.
You've read my script, and you know it.
Michael, does the same count for you?
I did enjoy doing the Doctor Who series on BBC television, yes. Principally because what was written down was broadly the story you've got at the end of it, which I find remarkably refreshing. considering a lot of other things you do, what's written down in the script bears little relationship to what comes out at the other end. I found a lot of the scripts were very good and they were very exciting, and I did enjoy doing that part of television. It's a different medium, but I enjoyed it. I think, though, compared to some other televisions I've had the single misfortune to be in, I probably prefer stage. I don't particularly like filmed television. I don't know, it loses the impetus. Before I went out to New Zealand, and then what happened thereafter, I don't know, because I didn't come back to this country till things changed again, and John Nathan Turner took over.
Peter, did you face kinda on any Pacific character?
Neither. No, I don't think I did, although I just saw it as part of the, to be quite honest with you, as the Hitler regime of 1939, 1933 onwards. And there is Adolf. And I was Himmler, but this is in parenthesis. It's not, I didn't say what is Himmler like, but that was the role, the status where I was head of the SS, obviously, and that's why Mary Whitehouse complained. One of the reasons she complained, because I did one of those on the neck of Dennis Chiddery, and I coshed Tom Baker with a wobbly cosh. And I suppose I was highly dangerous to anybody, apart from you, whom I admire.
I used to look over my shoulder, I would say.
So I looked on it as the Hitler regime, yes. We didn't have a Goering, did we?
No.
I was the Goering.
You was.
I am fat.
And I hate Daleks, you know that. Do all that work and get killed in episode 6.
It was a pleasure.
I'm there.
Michael, did you base Stavros on any Pacific person?
Not specifically. An element of Hitler came into it, obviously, the sort of totalitarian state. I like to think, because this person, this thing, was about, in my estimation, 190 years old and dying by inches, but being kept alive by this machine. He couldn't see properly except with the aid of the machine. He couldn't speak properly except with the aid of the machine. He couldn't hear, he couldn't do anything except the aid of the machine. It could have been embarrassing in early life, but I like to think of him as a normal sort of being in his earlier years, possibly a brilliant scientist, who, along the way, got twisted, bit by bit. Perhaps he started off as a moderately, maybe he was even a liberal in his youth, and then...
SDP.
Possibly worked his way through them all until he became downright fascist, you know. Why? It could be a very interesting thing. And there were elements of Adolf Hitler. There were elements, the voice was Russell, the fellow who advocated the atomic bomb, and then became CND. He did complete both parts. I used Russell's voice, Bertrand Russell, I'm talking about. And I always felt that if Davros came back, he would say to himself, "That's it. No more Mr. Nice Guy."
In audio visuals.
Because if you, as I've had the very, very great privilege of being asked by organisers of, 18 Doctor Who conventions of some sort in Great Britain, you get to know the organisers and people allied to the organisers who make audiovisuals, and over the years, even if you only meet twice a year, they gradually become personal friends, and they are the people responsible for writing, perhaps writing, directing, producing them. So I get invited to, following after Michael's footsteps here. The one I did for Gary Russell.
Gary.
That one?
The Silurian one.
I should have mentioned yours first, shouldn't I? I dropped a rig there.
Glad.
Yes, there's a brilliant audiovisual coming up with Alan as one of the producers, and another one that by Gary Russell and crew, which we made last autumn, which I'm waiting to hear. A lot of hard work went into both. I'm extremely we won't go into your plot now, will we, Alan?
No.
I know in the one for Gary, I'm so powerful that it outdoes Davros. How about that? I won't tell you what I do in it. We'll wait till it's on display somewhere. Thank you for asking that question. Very quickly. By chatting her up when I visited her from the planet Earth with the charming gentleman. I always get mixed up because I've got friends in Allo. So I was confused Richard Marner, who's a friend of mine, with another character actor who was similar, who was my partner in Blade 7. If you're clever enough, you can tell me, darling.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. You saw the clip talking to Jacqueline Pierce a few weeks ago. You remember?
I know the character's name.
Yeah, go on then.
You played Fontaine, he played Burkle.
There we are, yes, thanks.
Perhaps one of the audience knows?
And if you don't, watch it.
Well, forgetting the question.
Anyone?
Blade 7 was a bit more hair-raising to make for me. Why? Because it's only one or two occasions in my entire life that I seriously dried on a take. And the people I can control hate that. They probably hate me. I can't go into why, except it was a technical speech to my way of thinking. A tongue twister speech. I'm quite good at tongue twisters in good English, to get my meaning. But when they're slightly technical, and I had the only speech to start a scene with a difficult walk round to time it to get to a chair. For some reason I dried, I don't know why, it's a psychological thing.
That must have been your first episode then?
First ever what?
That must have been your first episode?
Probably, yeah. Probably, yes.
Yes.
Yes, it was a bit hair-raising for me.
At any given moment, committing oneself to a particular interpretation now, I mean, if ever such a magic thing occurred, which it won't, but if it did, you'd be silly to commit yourself now to an interpretation, because times change, attitudes change. But I do think, and this I believe very strongly, that Doctor Who has got to be an avuncular eccentric. I really believe that. I don't think he can be too young. I think he must be sufficiently old to command respect. Because if someone too young needs to get the message through in an emergency to someone of importance, I mean, he's only going to go up to the policeman and he's going to say, I'm Doctor Who and I must speak to Maggie Thatcher. They're going to say, exactly. They're going to say, piss off, you silly little bastard. You know, whereas, if he does have the authority, at least someone will listen to him. They say, well, he might be an eccentric old so-and-so, but he's got something. Maybe he knows something we don't, and he will get to first base, and eventually to the brigadier. So I do think he's got to command that respect. I think there should be a touch of danger in him. You mustn't be absolutely certain of the Doctor. Could turn nasty. We know that he has 2 hearts. We know that he can jump 16 foot, no problem. But he's got to keep that little secret from the world at large. And so there must be this to him as well. And I think he would deliberately choose an avuncular and eccentric character to disguise this fact that he is in fact a superhuman. But he's got to keep his secret.
I met Sir. No, the pretend Sir's gone. And the producer is known to me personally, let's pretend. It could well happen, couldn't it? Yes. And he says, what do you want to do with the part, Peter? My answer is immediate. And then if he doesn't like it, well, tough luck. You'll have to get the Pet Shop Boys or something, I don't know. Yeah, it's two-way, 2 arrows pointing that way and that way, and which can come on when I feel like it. And one is, this way is great authority, of Tom Baker's enjoyment with words, his attitude when he was enjoying himself. And he made jokes within the script and smiled a hell of a lot. And I would take that one a little bit further, slightly zanier and slightly more eccentric. Not as far as the Marx Brothers, but that's the arrow that way. So there's two basic big moods there, like that. That's my platform, okay? And
I have a problem in my logic banks. I watched Genesis of the Daleks and you had a full head of hair. I watched the Silurians. You did not. It had been exterminated. Explain problem.
I still have a full head of hair.
I am not talking to you.
It's in a box back at home.
Right, it's good enough for Anthony Valentine, Charlton Preston, Bing Crosby, every blessed star that's a million times more famous than I am. It should be good enough for me. When your hairpiece, even a very expensive one, gets sunburnt in the summer sun, which happens sometimes in Britain, then the hair gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and then you've had your chips and it has to be thrown away, even though it's an expensive one. So you get rid of it. You can work 12 months a year more and be the unprettiest, fattest, oldest person in Great Britain. There is no rhyme or reason to why some people work a lot, whether they've got hair, fatness, oldness, youth, or what. It's a big subject, that.
Yes, until I hit the scenery.
Immensely, yes. Is the writer here? Is the writer in the room? Is the author in the room?
I have seen the round.
Oh, good.
Did you find it difficult dropping back into the characters after so long?
I don't think so,
No, because I think it's the joining up forces that does that. If we'd been alone, I might find it harder, but it was being together makes it much easier, yeah.
Have we a question from the audience?
Yeah, do you think it would be a possibility for Nag and Dan to come back in an audio-visual story? Both of you together.
Oh, well, yes, I mean, that's not up to us. It's up to the audio-visual people to organise it. And if they can, bearing in mind copyright. You see, a very tight on copyright, as no doubt Mark Ayres has already told you.
How did you become involved in wartime?
Well, again, we were talking about this earlier. Keith Barnfather, who for many years used to take the videos of these conventions, had his own company. And he used to do commercials for people, bread and butter money, good bread and butter, jam with it. And when he had a bit of money left over, he decided to spend it on doing his own thing. And these little half-hour productions of adventures concerning Doctor Who characters, in this case Benton, who in wartime was a warrant officer, he got someone to write the script, and very good it was, and just launched it on the market to see how it would go. And I think it's gone quite well. That is how I became involved with Keith Barnfather at wartime. Has anybody seen it? It's all right, isn't it? Oh, good.
Next question.
Of whom or what?
The Cheshire Cat.
No, I mean, I used to copy people when I was younger, but I don't like copying them now. I'd rather invent characters myself, like the Cheshire Cat, who of course is mad. You're one, we're all one here. You know, it's fun when you read a character, Dave, and you can put a voice to it or whatever. I suppose when one's young, you do impressions because it's the sincerest form of flattery, and you do them of the people you admire. We always do them of the members of the Goon Show, you know, because it was so popular in our youth that everybody was working on Goon impressions, you know. But after a while, you stop that because you realise the original is so much better than yourself. A carbon copy can never be quite as good as the original, however good the carbon copy is. When it seemed to send itself up, and I don't think it worked quite as well when that happened. I don't. You've got to make a choice. Is it going to be Doctor Who or Batman? You know, Batman's all well and good. They've got that niche of sending themselves up, biff, bam, wallop, and all that. But I don't think that's what Doctor Who is about. And I think it was a very good format and a very good idea, and I think if one sticks to the original intention of Doctor Who, it can be a smashing series. Yes, I used to get little notices pinned on the back. I won't tell you what they were, because they were all obscene. Well, most of them were, anyway. They made reference to Davros's love life, his antecedents, or lack of them. No, there were lots of little jokes played. It was a hoot, really. It was a tremendous cast with a great sense of humour. I mean, they have to have a great sense of humour, because every time I got out of the chair, they could see my spindly legs stuck out of a kilt. Because I can tell you, you can't sit in that machine in trousers. Makes your voice go up 2 octaves. When you've got to paddle that machine and make it look as if it was a motor, you know, I mean, you wait till you try and climb a set of stairs in that. Precisely. No, it was great fun. It used to look a bit odd in the BBC bar, I remember. Going up in a kilt and Davros's head. And to my shame, I smoke. So this latex is, you know, it's not exactly fireproof. In fact, it could burst into flames at any moment. So I had to have this long Noel Coward type cigarette holder going up to the BBC bar. As Davros, with a long cigarette holder wearing a skirt and prince holes, gave me a reputation which wasn't entirely deserved in the BBC.
Any more questions?
This is good. We're going to smash it, yeah. Oh, hello, a question.
Were you asked to play Davros again in Destiny of the Daleks or the Paper Book?
I always get confused with the subsequent titles.
It's the next one after Jen.
Yes, I did. Yes, they first of all said they weren't going to do it, so I went to New Zealand. And then they rang up and said, could I do it? And then somebody made a long-distance phone call to me, and I said, well, no, not really, 12,000 miles away. So that was the end of that one. And ironically, subsequently, it's always been the same story. I've either been doing something every time they've never asked me to do anything other than Davros anymore. I used to do lots of little lovely roles in Doctor Who, and enjoyed every one of them. I think it would be silly for me to do Davros now anyway, because Terry Malloy, frankly, has made kids. I mean, that mask, his mask, sits there in its cage, waiting for him to occupy it. He's been doing it now for what? 10 years, isn't it? 6? Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Well, it must have been 10 years since I did it, I don't know. Must have been since the 70s. 15, was it? Oh, well, there you are, you see. You want to know the answer after you I mean, nothing particularly amusing. It's just a shortage of time, isn't it, Peter? I mean,
Technical problems all the time, that's what stops everything. And the retake, the silences in the studio and the stillness, nobody explains from control what's gone wrong. So you start blushing, thinking you've gone wrong, getting paranoid about it, because they don't explain a thing. But if you keep your eyes open, you'll see the shadows gone over Michael's eye, or Tom Baker's eye, or Pertwee's left face, because I work with Pertwee more than with Baker. And that's the reason, you know, technical problems non-stop, non-stop, non-stop. And in the middle of the Christmas show, I was Brer Fox with Jean Boat as Mrs. Wolf, and Gareth Thomas as Brer Bear. And Gareth sat on a park bench with me, and just before I stood up, he went and nailed my tail. I heard this hammering going on behind me, and I thought, that's the carpenter or something, and Gareth was nailing my tail to the park bench. And I didn't know this, and I had to get up ever so quickly in this scene and leave Gareth behind. And you heard this, and the entire tail was back on the bench, and I'd gone. And I was supposed to be a real fox. That was Gareth. I think Paul Darrow is equally nutty too. I also think Paul Darrow is a brilliant comedy actor. I wish he was a star of several massive sitcoms now, and not always the same 4 people that are on the box. Oh, what have I said? Hush my mouth. Hush my mouth.
Any more questions from the audience?
A question for Michael. Why did you go to New Zealand? I hope you don't take this the wrong way. Why did you come back?
Yes. Well, why? Yes. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. No, I had friends in the theatre here who were Kiwis, and they went back to New Zealand. They kept nagging me to come over and work for them. And I'd done a stint at the National Theatre, which was tedious and boring, to say the least. But at least it gave me enough money to go over there and see New Zealand. I worked there, and I worked there for 6 months in Theatre Corporate in Auckland. And I must say I enjoyed every minute of it. Had not Poms been foreigners, I might still have been there. But you are rationed for 6 months. Prisoners of Her Majesty are on bail for 6 months. They're allowed out of their jail for 6. That's it. Then they have to come back. There was a lot of work out there. I mean, I could have gone on working forever. But Poms ain't allowed, because they have problems. They have their own problems with unemployment, as everybody else in the world. And so they were very nice about it. I mean, they rationed me for 6 months, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Like I was chosen by Mr. Ken Greaves because of my French accent. Simple as that.
Did you enjoy the location shooting?
Well, obviously, if you're going to go sunbathing in Provence, you'd be daft not to, yes. Yes, in midsummer. Yes. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Question from the audience? No?
You remind me of that one episode when the Daleks actually didn't speak in a monotone on one plane, so to speak. They changed. They had a sort of metamorphosis. They became friendly Daleks. It was weird. They came and said, "Good morning. How nice to see you. Oh, what a lovely day, shall we dance?" That's the only time they've ever spoken in a voice other than a monotone. The Dalek voice is very easy, really. There are only 3. You know, that's high, medium, and low. The low one, you know, is the boss. "We will pursue." And the medium one, he's the sort of regimental sergeant major, gets things done. And he says things like, "Eliminate the humanoids." And the one at the top, he's the one that eventually cracks. And within him are the seeds of destruction, you know. And he's all right as long as he's running around and he's winning. But eventually, it all gets too much for him, and he starts to turn round in circles. And usually it's the "I have failed" syndrome. And he goes, "We will pursue the end, oh no, we just want the I have failed, I have failed, I have failed, I have failed." And blows himself up to smithereens in the end. But he's always the one that cracks, it's the high one. I think it must be something to do with the way he's sitting inside that
I know how he feels.
Well, I was beginning. She was lovely, but we stuffed her in the teapot as the dormouse. Wonderful. This lady. Oh, it was all the old gang in that, wasn't it? But there's a lady over there who raised her hand.
Sorry?
I was wondering, Peter, why weren't you in the film Henry V? Because most of the other cast with London as well.
First of all, I didn't produce and direct it, Mr. Brandon did. Secondly, if you saw the film Monsieur Le Fer, who is the French deserter knight who has a little fight with Bernard Horsfall playing pistol, is not in the film. They showed. It's a shorter version, isn't it? Much shorter version than Henry V, isn't it?
Mm.
I wish I was in it, yes. My bank manager would have been pleased. Thanks for asking, and do tell Mr. Branner that it's a big remiss on his part. Thanks for asking. See you soon.
A round of applause, please, for Peter Miles and Michael. Michael will be signing autographs, I think, outside in that direction.
Excuse me.
Yes?
May I say very, very quickly to you that what I should have said when I came in, but I didn't because you were so quick off the mark, darling, that I seriously thank Carol and her co-organisers for even inviting us. We know how many people have been successful in Doctor Who. We always consider it a great privilege to be asked. Secondly, we come here because we're very pleased to see you and to meet you, and that is totally genuine, and I had to say that as well. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen,
What's happening now?
somebody...
I've got friends. Yes, well, I did Aurak and Slave's work, you see. Would you like to hear them all? You would, right?
Right.
Well,
I'm sorry, Master, but I'm afraid I'm a very old computer, and I'm afraid my sensors are drooping. What about yours, Aurak?
you speak for yourself. My sensors are rigid, thanks to Sutherland. Don't you agree, Zen? Confirmed. There you are.
Brilliant.
All down my nose. There we are.
Can you keep in touch with the Blake 7 cards?
Yes, I do when I can.
Well, so...
Yes, I do if I can. I was with actually Paul Dando at the end of April. We were guests on Space City. Any of you on Space City? Oh, but I needn't speak anymore. You can tell, you can speak for me because you know all my stuff, don't you, really? Anyway, no, we had a great time, and Paul, smashing chap. And, you know, I don't see Michael very much. I speak to him on the telephone. And I've seen dear old Jackie for the first time since Blake 7 finished, today. First time. Because you probably know her. So, you know.
I'll tell you, you were on very well. So was, did you
Oh,
really
yes.
see them that much when you actually recording it, did you?
No, I didn't see them. Well, very little. I happened to be on 3 days of that production period. The first time we had the read-through of the episode, then I disappear, and they do a lot of work, you see, learning their lines and getting all the moves right, and I go home and do something else, which is lovely. I don't have to learn my part. And I then appear next at the producer's run, then the technical run, where all the cameras men come and do all the business, and then the actual show itself. But it was lovely because I was able to be there on the set with them in my little cubby hole, which they call Zen's Den. And it was a black drapes round a table, and I had a monitor, 3 microphones, and me, the crane crowd around the table. That was very good. I was part of the action, you see. I wasn't sort of a disembodied voice. And that's what happened when I did Doctor Who, all the voices I did for Doctor Who, I did in a recording studio. I didn't see any of the cast at all, which was a shame, because I'd love to have done.
Have you, I mean, talking about American conventions, there's a rumour going around at the moment that possibly Blake 7 might be coming back. Terry Nation's written the script for it.
Oh, really?
Would you like to come back and do it?
Oh, I'd love to.
Either recreate characters or something new?
Yes, I'd love to, every time. I mean, think of the money. No, seriously, I would, apart from the money bit. I really would, because it's a wonderful show, and I think the fans are so marvellous. You know, they're so loyal. Everybody's so loyal after all this long time. I'm talking about Blake 7, of course. And it really is amazing. No, I'd love to come back.
Any ideas? I mean, you played, what, 3 computers in Blake 7 with each individual personalities.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever come up with any ideas for a new sort of computer with a different sort of personality and voice?
No, but I hadn't given it much thought. But I think I could do. I think I could do, yes. Because I love different voices. I do a lot of voices on commercials and radio as well. And I can sort of change from one to the other pretty quickly, which is lovely. so that's a challenge. So I might come up with something.
You've been in, what, three Doctor Who stories, Skin Up in Space,
Yes.
Skin and Vega, and Time of the Running. You watch Doctor Who yourself? You watch Doctor
Yes, I do. I have a 12-year-old son who's an avid Doctor Who fan. He never seen Break 7 because he wasn't, well, he was around, but he wasn't, was too young to watch it. No, we watched Doctor Who very religiously, I think. Very good. Love it.
Re-educated son now. Released, I think, 4 stories, 4 tapes. Video tapes of Break 7 now.
Yes, I must go and try. Actually, I haven't even got a videotape of Break 7. Incredible, isn't it? I haven't.
Been running by 99. You've got any other news?
Get a PSP video dish next year.
Oh, they're showing it, are they?
Next year they are.
Oh, it's what, from the beginning?
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, you see, this is what I heard, and a rumour going about, and it's definitely true. Well, that's marvellous. I haven't been told. Nobody's been told about it.
Think of money.
I know. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Yes, it's all going around here. Ooh, lovely. I was telling my wife, no, so I want to go on an expensive holiday. No, that's good news, if that is correct. I heard rumours, as I say, but I haven't heard anything definite. They haven't been in touch with any of the cast, as far as I know. But they were Pat Troughton, whom I work with, not in Doctor Who, but in television plays. It's great. But Sylvester McCoy, I think, is brilliant. I must admit, on the first showing, I think everybody had the same feeling. What he wasn't, Doctor Who, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault at all. And but after the end of the series, he was, I thought, extremely good and a very nice chap. I had met him once in not on the set, but socially. A very good actor too. And I think he's at Westminster Theatre now, isn't he? In a play, I believe. That's right. That's right. Yes, and got very good notices too.
You, apart from Tom Baker and Sylvester, you've also sort of worked with Colin as well.
Yes, Colin was in Blade 7. I didn't come into contact with Colin. I just sort of met him very briefly. Don't they? Oh, I see. No, there again, he's extremely good, and I haven't met him since.
Anybody got any questions? Would you like to ask Peter anything?
So.
Final episode ended in massacre, except for Iraq.
That's right.
As well. Was there a general feeling of despondency among the cast when this episode was?
Oh, well, we were very surprised. I mean, when we got the scripts, because we didn't know. So I think we'll have another series called Aurak and Me, don't you think so? I would suggest it. No, it was it was a shock, really, because we were all very upset, really, because apart from the end of the series, I mean, there's your nice little nest egg going away. Not only that, but the commonality of the people involved, which we all got on terribly well, and lots of laughs. That was the end as well. But the BBC are funny people. They haven't brought it back, where they had countless people wanting it back. The Americans, again, over the moon about it. Something's happening. Please do ask.
At the end of at the end, just before the shoot day, Aurak actually disappeared. And then he always disappeared off too.
I've no idea. To the pub, actually. No, I don't know, do I? I don't know. I don't know where he did.
I know the problems with trees, that's probably your work, isn't it?
Ah,
What was it now? People in touch.
oh, a lot of people were, yes. In particular, I'll tell you a little instance of this. I don't know if you've heard it before, but I had a letter after Zen went up in flames or smoke or whatever it was. I had a letter from a lady saying that her daughter couldn't sleep after Zen died. She cried all night. She was terribly upset. And she wanted me to write to her to sort of say that I was all right as a person. She was so taken by this death of the computer, which was quite extraordinary. Very well, I've heard a lot of people say that. But there again, there was no sort of, no technical stuff that I did. It was just ordinary my voice. Anyway, I wrote back to this little girl through her mother and said, I was okay, not to worry, I'm still around and hope she enjoys the series, or something like that. I can't think what it was now. Right, that was that. Then I went to a convention. I don't know which one it was even. It wasn't the Space City before that. And a panel, just like this. I was asked by a little girl who was sitting in a wheelchair in the aisle what was it? What did I feel like when Zen died? So I said, well, I was very upset. I said, terribly upset. And I said, you know, I was sorry to lose the character, because I liked old Zen. But I said, don't worry. I said, these things happen, and you go on and on. You have other two computers to think about. Well, I only had the one then, because the slave wasn't around. Anyway, I just said, okay, because I'm an actor, and I can, you know, one does these things, you die, and this sort of thing, you have to go on. So she said, oh yes. So I said, matter of fact, I heard from a lady about a little girl who couldn't sleep. She cried all night. She said, I was that little girl. Now what about that? There was that little girl there, she was a cripple in a wheelchair. And she was there. I didn't know what to say. No, what do you say at these occasions? So it was quite moving, really. A mere voice getting more, you know, reaction. It's amazing. Right.
I'm going to drop something on you.
I really?
I am.
Not too hard.
I love you. Obviously, doing all these voices, you've got to create characters when you prepare. Straight off the top of your head now, from suggestions from the audience, to actually come up with a voice as best you could.
Yes.
On
what
character. Anybody got any characters in mind? I mean, there's probably some fan fiction writers around here. Is that some?
Oh, something like that.
Some suggestions for computer voice. Some sort of character.
The classic one is a Dalek, really. How would you interpret the Daleks?
A Dalek is like that, I do not know, but I can't remember the words, but this is something, what is it about like that? I don't know.
Exterminated.
Oh, exterminate, exterminate. Something like that.
Hey, man.
I don't know what
Very similar to all actors to some extent.
Who?
Feynman.
Feynman, yes, he is a bit, isn't he?
Smart.
I think he pinched it from me, actually.
Do you have particular favourite of the three robots or computers you created?
No, I like them all. I suppose I have a leaning towards old Aurak, really. I like him. You see, I see these characters as human beings. When I first started, you see. Old Zen was a sort of a solicitor type, you know, rather ponderous, you know, knows it all, you know, that sort of thing. And Aurak, I see, is a fussy little bank clerk with a bowler hat and an umbrella, you see, going around his business, you see, and has his umbrella even in the hottest day, that sort of thing. An old slave I see is Uriah Heep from David Copperfield. Oh, I'm sorry, last. That's how I create the character, by stealing these people.
Any suggestions for character? Some sort of character trait? Yes.
How about sort of evil computer? Sort of evil voice?
Evil voice?
Evil Aurak you did in
well, I don't know about that. You see, Vincent Price. No, not a Vincent Price. An evil voice. Hasn't it gone quiet? Yes. Well, there you are. You see, you've got to be very slow and slow, like very, very quiet. And the quieter you are, the evil more sort of gets. Shut that door immediately. Right.
Right.
Enough of that.
Any questions? Oh, good.
I'm glad you came. Yes.
Going back to
It's being paid.
death again, I suppose.
Yes.
You said that, you know, when Zen died, there was quite a lot of mail there.
Yeah.
Did you also get a lot of mail when before I was
Slave.
Fox, I suppose?
No, I didn't, funnily enough. Well, it was the end of the series, I suppose. No, I didn't. Why?
Perhaps
I can't remember the silver thing. Can't remember. I think I might have got a couple of letters, yes.
You think perhaps his death was swamped by the death of the rest of the cast?
I think so, yes. I think the whole carousel was a bit, over, awe-inspiring.
All the time. Who do you think would survive if they do go into this thing? Who would you like to
Well, I
see
think-
character?
Well, I think anyone can survive, really. I mean, if they can survive in Dallas, I'm sure they can survive in Blake 7. I think, you see, the thing is, I don't know whether they will want to come back and do it. I don't think the girls will for a start. I think Michael and Paul would. I'm sure they would. But I don't think Stephen Pacey would. And the girls certainly wouldn't. I mean, Josette Simon, who, you remember Josette playing a coloured girl, yes, Dana. She has done the most wonderful stage work. In fact, she got a brilliant notice. She just did the Royal Shakespeare Theatre this last week. You probably see, saw it. When she plays in Arthur Miller's play.
Is that because they have gone on to greater things, as they said, or is it because they were unhappy at the time?
Oh no, nothing about happiness. No, no, no. It's, I didn't want to be typecast, I think, and they've gone on to different things, you see, stage work. I know. Not many people do now, you see, the whole accent's going. That's a shame, that is. That is. Where do you come from, sir?
Leicester.
Leicester? I come from Felixstowe myself. That's right. It's Felixstowe by the sea. Next to Ipswich, you see. Well, there you are, that's my Suffolk boys. I do a lot of Suffolk on the radio. In fact, sorry, I'm getting carried away.
People decided all films just out in the
What you wanted to do with life?
Oh, well, that's that seems an obvious and easy question, but it isn't. I don't really know. I started off life as an actor, and I thought of going back to it, and I decided against it. At that time, I was in the life assurance world, and one of my clients was a man called John Whiting. And I talked to him about writing, because he was a very famous writer. And I went down to see him in Sussex. And he had this beautiful pad in the country. And I said, well, how do you write? And he said, well, Monday I wander around the place and I chop wood. He said, Tuesday I potter about and I chop a bit more wood. Wednesday and Thursday I write. Friday I sometimes go up to town and see my agent. And then it's the weekend. And I thought, all this for 2 days' work? Marvellous, I've become a writer. And it took me years to find out what all this chopping wood was about. This was his thinking time, you know. But by then it was too late, I was already a writer.
So when did you get your first commission?
1964. I submitted a play, a Dr. Finley's case book, and it was accepted. And I was then promptly commissioned for another, so I gave up the day job and said, right, I'm a writer. It happened that this laird, once Jamie had landed, was the laird of his own clan. And the progression of it was that Jamie was the natural successor to take over that clan. So that once the Yeti and the intelligence had been defeated, Jamie then had the decision to make to carry on with the Doctor or to become the laird of his own clan. A question of responsibility rather than enjoying life and enjoying himself as he was swanning around Guildford, or coming back to basics and taking up the responsibilities that were in his blood from long before the time he was born. And he would have decided to have stayed on.
When John Purvey took over as a Doctor, there was a lot of publicity stills of him with his arm around a Yeti and leaping and throwing and things like that. When was that? Was that always, I sort of interpreted that the story was to be a John Purvey story?
Well, that did surprise both Henry and I, but I think this was purely publicity value. The Yeti were popular, and it was linking the new with the old, really. Pat Troughton was associated with the Yeti, and so they wanted to associate the new Doctor Who with the old Doctor Who.
Davros himself, Michael Wisher.
Morning. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Well, first things first. How many prizes have been drawn?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Right.
Oh. So lucky for some, there are 13 prizes to be drawn in the raffle.
Right, this is number 1, is it? Right. First one.
Jean's one, Mitch.
Number 36.
Golden tickets, they're all gold, I assume, are they?
Yes, they're all gold.
Number 36, 36.
Dave Harvey. $305.
You're only 10 out, you're cool.
There he is. What do you get?
That's how you got to get the police.
2.
You poor thing.
Well, you do 2 rounds.
Going. No? Do it. I'll do a quickie then without fumbling. Straight into there. 162. There you are. One more to go, is it? There we are. Last one. 32. And it's Mr. Murphy.
I got 3 32s, I can guess.
32, Mr. Murphy.
Anybody? Hello, Andy. Rest of you awake, or are you just going to sit there?
Is that all right? Speak up, these things. Yeah.
I'm getting deaf. Okay, welcome, gentlemen. You've already done one panel, haven't you?
Yes.
With the old dialogue over there. So, we're going to try not to take a long barrel. Basically, Peter, Michael, either one, how did you both start out at the beginning?
Yes, sir. And I used to go around Germany performing plays, doing reviews, variety, making a complete idiot of myself. And I think they wrote in my paybook at the end, Michael Wisher appears to be an actor, but in his spare time he does some work for us in the Royal Air Force now and again. And after I was demobbed, I did a lot of amateur theatre, and someone sent up for an entry form to apply to go to the RADA as a joke. They didn't tell me about this. And I think they must have forged my signature or something. And one day an envelope arrived saying, you will do the following auditions and one of your own choice. So I was working in an engineering factory at the time, making equipment for distilleries and breweries, which was a wonderful job. Especially when you went out to measure up and test their wares. They were very hospitable in the breweries in those days. And I thought, oh, this is wonderful, and quickly invented a grandmother who just died and had to be buried, and went down to London to do an audition. The same audition was a gentleman by the name of Michael Williams, who's done tremendous things since then. And that's really how it all started. I can't really remember much about the audition, except that I think the only reason I got in was that I didn't do a dramatic piece. Has anybody here read 3 Men in a Boat? Or seen the film of 3 Men in a Boat? No? Oh dear. Yes, well, there's a passage in it called Harris and the Hampton Court Maze, which is quite amusing. I just told the story of Harris and the Hampton Court Maze. I think they were so relieved they weren't going to listen to yet another Shakespeare that they let me in. And that's how it all started.
You start doing rep, etc. How would you break into TV, especially getting something like Doctor Who?
Well, I think over the last 30 years, I suppose I've done at least one television every year. The first one I did was in the very early 60s. They used to do, I think, what they called armchair theatre. Poisoned Pen, I think, was the first one I ever did. And I played a rather intense Scots suspect called MacLeod. Does anybody here know Poisoned Pen? No. Well, that's another no-no. It's a very good thriller. If you get the chance to see it or read it, it's very interesting. And really, I suppose all the other television came on from there.
Which is NIDA, that's the last one. Nothing to build up. I consider the years previous to that, when I was working in live theatre reps like Liverpool and other well-known towns, where you're asked to play slightly more three-dimensional parts if you're lucky. So the harder bits come before you do the television, frankly. The television is, I'm being very honest here, is slightly more one-dimensional for an actor. Yeah, I'm sorry to say that, but I mean, to play NIDA is one side of every human being's character, whether it's only 1 inch high inside them or 5 miles high inside them, right? Which is the love of power, tyranny, ambition, and all those other things to take over other people, self-deification. I suppose it's in everybody, and Mr. Hitler owned the rights to it. But I don't find it hard doing that at all. I'm not mad, I'm not insane, but I do like playing nutcases. There's a tour now in Britain this very minute, and I think it's at the New Theatre this week or next week, or the week, called Wait Until Dark. Peter Byrne, who starred with Jack Warner in Dixon and Doc Green, is playing the part I played and Peter Sallis played. It's in Wait Until Dark. Then, if you see that play, and watch Peter, I didn't see Peter Byrne do it, he's doing it this minute somewhere. Watch a nutcase at work. Go and see Wait Until Dark and see Peter Byrne's part in that. There's a lovely nutcase, he's even nuttier than NIDA. It's a wonderful part.
I love the way all nutty people, they say, I'm not mad, you know.
I'm not, well, honestly, I really...
Let's stand up, everybody. Stand up. Let's get on together. Come on, stand up. Turn round. Shake hands with the person behind you. That's right. Bet you thought you'd never meet them before in your lives. Oh, that's better. Now you can sit down, that's right. It makes me feel as if I'm the only one with a hangover here. Haven't they dug him up yet? Oh, that's better.
Any questions? Any questions so far?
Oh, has it gone silent? Let's slip back.
We've got questions. We've got questions. At the back, to the back.
Can you show us how red your face goes when you do your dad what's going bad?
It goes red after a couple of gins, anyway.
NIDA. I will have them exterminated now!
Should be about the colour of that. We tried to bring that in, but Peter Sellers, put a contract out on me. You see that wonderful thing he did in that film where this was a hand had a life of its own, you know.
Any others? There's somebody else floating around. There you go.
Actually, Michael, you also do a brilliant impression of a Dalek. Would you be able to do that again?
But the Dalek going nutty.
Yeah.
You mean...
Walking around and on.
Yes. Well, he's totally... This is where everybody goes. No, he's the nutty one. He's the treble one, you know, that has... Sooner or later, he's going to go mad. Because he cracks under the strain. All the other Daleks are very tough creatures, but this one, there's that little strain of weakness in him, you know, that the seeds of disaster are sown somewhere within his brain mechanism inside it. There's a short circuit, and when things get too much for him, like the senior Dalek says, "You will pursue the humanoids." And then the middle Dalek, the sergeant, says, "Hurry up about it, idiot!" You know, and the little Dalek goes chasing off, you know. "I have found the aliens I am pursuing. Oh dear, there is a step in the way. I have failed, I have failed, I have failed. I've been to one of the step in the way. in private, I do, darling.
You're qualified. Anybody else?
Darling.
No, they can't think again. Oh, there's one.
Haven't sing at all.
Not this morning, they can't.
It's ringing you.
Are you sending us up? Oh, is that a question?
I know the Prince of Monaco. Why not? Why, had you a song in mind? Is it clean?
Is it well?
I sing it better than the gentleman who earned a lot of money singing it.
You got any record producers in the house?
Yes, I'm not singing this morning. I go to about 1 a month musical auditions for shows. So I'll pull one off. The last musical audition for London, said that was 2 months ago, in a dance studio in Covent Garden, and it's a show opening at the Shaftesbury Theatre this autumn called Gold Diggers, based on an old Hollywood movie. And there's an American director in charge of it called Mark Hamill. I'm telling the story against myself because there's a tagline coming out now.
I be the disgusting old magistrate. After the young girls, you know. He goes to a meeting with this young girl that he sort of bribed and blackmailed to be there, but she has the hooks into him. That's another story. And he goes there using the name of Mr. Jones. I've often thought, yes, that's the sort of thing Davros would do, you know. I mean, we don't know about his private life, you know. He's a 190-year-old person. What does he do? Inveigle some poor young thing and then call himself Mr. Jones. And he goes something like this. Just look at yourself, a picture of health and dancing agility, full of ability, sharp as a blade. No wonder the maid is finding it hard to resist, Mr. Jones. Do you recognize the feeling in your bones? This familiar old sensation, indescribable elation. Can it mean rejuvenation, Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones is a man in full control of what he owns. You'll have the chance to test it when the lady comes to call on Mr. Jones.
You also had a #1 record, didn't you, Michael?
Yes, I made a couple of records in my time. Well, Half a Sixpence was one, when I played the actor laddie in that, and the music hall record, which I sang a lot of old music hall songs on. I don't think you can get that anymore now, probably just as well. You know, I mean, apart from writing room notices on my back and things like that, did they do that to you?
What, rude as
Yeah.
back? I don't know. Dennis Chinnick could have done anything. He was mischievous.
Yeah. I don't think anything went disastrously wrong, did it?
Would you, if Terry Malloy wasn't able to come back as Davros at some stage, would you step back into the tilt?
Well, yes, I would, but with one proviso. I think I would have to insist that the original mask was used. I really do. I would insist on that and have it in the contract, because it does exist. The person who made it is still around, and I think I would insist on that. And I mean, I think Terry Malloy's done a wonderful job in this, but I really don't like the mask. It's more like a dyspeptic Ina Sharp. You know, I've just put a hairnet on. There you are. I mean, they've got a model out there with a hairnet on. I wonder if they've got their characters mixed up. I just don't like that mask at all, anyone. The fellow who did that mask actually did the mask for me in Alice in Wonderland as the Cheshire Cat, which was a lovely mask. But I don't know why they decided to change the mask, because I think it changes the character slightly. Because you see, the only way, it comes out through the mask, the character, I mean, the only way I could rehearse this was with a Sainsbury's paper bag over my head. I'm not kidding, because you're cut off from everything, you see. You can't see anybody or hear anybody properly. And if you suddenly get the mask on, you're completely disorientated and you can't do it. So I used to sit in the rehearsal room in this wheelchair with a Sainsbury's paper bag over me. You know,
Going back to Davros's private life, he went to see Davros went to see Return of the Forbidden Planet at the Cambridge Theatre, and he has a thing about Patrick Moore.
Good, I thought that was good.
There's a gut twister, can you get that?
Gentleman at the back. Version's got two.
The secret is out. Why do you think he spoke in that funny voice?
Any other questions? Hello?
Michael, I've read this section in the most recent Doctor Who book out, which actually gives you some details about Davros before his accident, and it mentions him having lots of lovers, you know, before he became crippled.
I'd like to play that part. Yes, I think it's a good idea, that. Going back in time, you see, you'd play your father, or your grandfather. They're all bastards, the whole nine's flag.
Yes. My father was an Oberleutnant. It's me, I worked my way up.
Worked your way up or just shot through the ranks? Anybody else?
Well, if you close your eyes and look through your eyelashes like that, that's about all you could see. You can't hear much either. I kept wanting to say to Tom, but I more or less had to learn his lines as well, because it's very disorientating.
Have you seen the present Doctor Who, Tom?
Yes, I have, yes.
Michael?
No, only by accident. So
You're a big fan.
Well, I'm telling you the truth, you don't want to mess about. I don't watch much, what's it called, television? No, I'm out a lot, yes. I'm heavy into jazz. I go out a lot to see American and British jazz all over the country.
Yeah, I think it's nice to see Sylvester getting back to the avuncular eccentric after all this sort of absence of that. I think I said yesterday that I do think that the Doctor has got to be old enough to be able to command a respect from important people. Eccentric he may be, but I do think he has to command this respect, and I do think he's got to be taken seriously by people if he is here on any mission at all. Otherwise he's going to fail abysmally. I mean, you know yourselves, if you go dressed in jeans and a bomber jacket and demand to see the Prime Minister, you get slung up, won't you? Whereas if you are reasonably impressive, an older gentleman could get past first base. You know, something might actually get a message through to the Prime Minister from there. They might think he's a bit odd, but they would actually listen to him. And I suspect that when you're as young as Peter Davison, for example, I don't think really they get past the policeman at the front door. You just say, bog off and go play cricket somewhere. And I think, you know, if you want to suspend disbelief, you've got to show someone that would get past the front door.
Of the one I did mostly with poetry, some people know him, of Invasion of the Dinosaurs, Invasion of the Dinosaurs, which is on in hot Tokyo town this year, and in Chicago and things like that. And I've got at least £4.08 in repeat fees for both these, Japan and States. Invasion of the Dinosaurs, which is now showing in hot Tokyo, I was sitting with Paddy, I think it's Paddy Russell directed, I forget, I get confused. Playing a scientist, as some people might know. And I saw, sitting in the studio about 30 feet away, a large prehistoric monster which was inhabited because it was a moving prehistoric monster, one of the few in the studio that moved, a proper monster, sitting on the bench. And everybody else had cleared, it was his lunch break, and I thought, there's a thing breathing over there, sitting there, not moving, a prehistoric monster, and it's one of those that stands up and walk type monsters. It's quite big, I mean, it was 10 foot or something. And then a little voice said, I can't breathe. Help, I can't breathe. What's the matter, says some voice. It's a terribly impatient voice from the controls. What's the matter with you? And this little voice kept on, you know, I can't breathe. Somebody had to come all the way back from the upstairs, a technician, and unscrew all his parts to get him off, undo this prehistoric monster. And when the monster came to pieces, inside the monster was a bloke about 4'1" in a red singlet and white shorts, rather the old-fashioned type, you know, the pre-war World II football that come down to... And the monster's 10 foot, there's a 4'1" bloke in there with sweat, you know, so I can't breathe. He'd been left. That was my invasion of the dinosaur memory.
What would you think of... Oh, hang on a second. No, a friend at the back again with a red sleeve.
Other than yourselves, who would you like seeing play with the Doctor?
Both of you in class.
Peter, don't say Michael.
I'm going to say me, I think.
Good question.
Yeah.
That's such a good question, because I do think the choice is so terribly important, more important than the BBC seem to realise. Oh, what have I said? That I would like to not answer your question, and I have to tell you in like a quarter of an hour, because I'd go through lots of names in my mind, and I'd hate to say ... now and regret it, because I think the choice of Doctor Who is more important than they realise. I think it's got to be a very experienced character actor who will actually perform the character rather than be themselves. I don't believe that... I mean, the first Doctor Who was performed by Bill Hartnell, who was a great character actor, did a wonderful line of warrant officers and petty officers in films and crooks and villains, and he was a lovely character actor. And he was practically in every film ever made at Ealing. And he applied the same principle of character acting to Doctor Who, and he created this rather dangerous person. You couldn't be absolutely certain about his Doctor Who. He could be very dangerous, certainly eccentric. Welcome to the Hangover Brigade. And I think that sort of attitude towards playing Doctor Who should be considered. Should be an experienced character actor. I suppose one day they are actually going to consider that he's going to transmogrify into a woman, and why not? It could be done. It could be done. Because, I mean, you can take any form. And I dare say that will come up on the agenda one day. It's a thought. Yes, I agree. Here.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's he? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
He's in the
He'd be very
Great
good.
Trade at the moment as well, on Channel 4.
Yes, he'd be excellent. Now, have you ever had anything put in plaster? In a television role? Only when I wish to burst. No, you mean plaster?
master of Paris on the base. Yes. Oh yes, yes. They forget you there as well. They leave you on the slab and they go away. 25 years later, it seems like they come back and take your fizzog off on this mask from which they make what they want to make. It's better these days. It's much quicker. But in the old days, it was, you know, like 3/4 of an hour. Yes. Little sort of straws stuck up your nostrils so that you didn't die entirely.
What do you think of conventions? I mean, how have you been to lately?
Well, they're wonderful, but they're hard on the liver.
Any questions? Quickly pass on from that subject. Anybody?
Hey! A question for Peter about his role in the invasion of dinosaurs. You played a rather loopy professor who thought the answer to all the world's ecological problems was to go back to a time before industry, in fact before any form of civilization at all. Do you think there's any parallel between what you were playing in that part 16 years ago and what a lot of people have seen think is the answer to ecological problems today?
Just say no, that's right.
Right, no.
What part of Fleet Street are you? That's getting you reading the train on the back of the Independent newspaper. That's a big subject, isn't it? A very serious big subject, which I don't want. I'm trying to keep relatively frivolous and yet professional. Forgive. Liz Sladen is round the corner. Brian Miller, who's a Dalek, lives round the corner.
Yeah.
And most of the AFMs and PAs live round the corner, don't they?
Yeah.
You live round about 4 corners.
Yes. I got my digs in that sort of Bermuda Triangle between Chiswick, Shepherd's Bush, and Hammersmith, you know, where you're allowed to disappear once you enter. None of the buses go beyond the boundaries, you know, none of the trains stop in there. It's a weird place. But I went to live there because I thought, well, this is not far from the BBC, maybe I'll get work. That was a laugh for a start. And I've been there ever since. I console myself with the thought that if I really am broke and want to work at the BBC, at least I can walk there. It's, no, but a lot of people do live around that area, particularly in the Ealing area, just a little further up from me. And one's constantly bumping into them. John Pertwee used to live just down the road in Carousel. But he keeps flitting about now. I never know where he is now, you know. One minute he's in Andorra, and the next minute he's somewhere else, in Ibiza, and then he's suddenly back on the doorstep again. So, what he's doing and where he is now, I don't know. I mean, you can be absolutely brilliant, but taking over from something which was fairly successful is difficult. She's got the giggles again. What's the matter? You're sitting on a feather here. I'll have half a dozen of those if you got them.
They need you on a Monday night in the Glasgow Empire, I tell you.
It's Dan again, is it?
Anybody else?
All these disgusting thoughts going through your brain is doing this. Let me have some of them. Yes.
Any other question?
What future roles have you got coming up?
Next. Don't you think it's interesting that Guy Siner, who was the senior Wehrmacht officer opposite me in Genesis, ended up in Hello Hello? I would have predicted that, eh? I bet Guy Siner never predicted that.
No.
Amazing, isn't it? The other guy I used to work with in Hello Hello is Richard Mahner, the German major, is it? It's only every week. Guy Siner's boss in the German army, they come to the cafe every week. I used to do Warship with him. We filmed that one on the top of Portland Bill, 3 AM. I was told to drive a Mercedes-Benz over rough countryside without any lighting on the edge of Portland Bill. Not the very edge, but quite close. And I didn't think Richard would end up in Hello Hello either. I wanted to end up in Hello Hello, but my agent was dead at the time.
Has he since come back to life?
No, I got rid of him.
Buried him, right.
I got rid of him.
Bring that away.
Do you know that the actor who also in a low as Ruger's superior, the one, I'll just get his name.
Oh, the general.
Yeah.
Von Klinkerhoffen, wasn't it?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, that's right.
yes, yes. Yes, I'm trying to think of his name now.
Yes.
Ah, I'm remembering.
After you, because mine's ready.
No, I'm not going to commit myself to that. No, I'm not going to. Because so many opportunities constantly occur that you can't, you don't see their potential at the time. And I mean, we didn't actually see the potential of Genesis of the Daleks when we did it. It was great fun, and we enjoyed it, and it was exceedingly well written, and we had an absolute ball doing it. But we didn't actually think, you know, this is going to become a bit cult or anything like that. We just did it. And I wouldn't like to sort of bar myself from another experience like that by trying to be too definite. Does that make sense? No. Yeah, I've had the same part I wanted to play, and the reason I'm not playing it tonight or rehearsing it tonight is lack of funds, which would be a very expensive show. I've worked out an entire production, including the design, costumes, lighting, accessories, because it's you need a bit of weaponry, of Richard III, the entire show. I'm ready to go. I know who I want, who are not too famous, because the too famous would be too busy to do it, even if I offered them money. But I'm quite ready to go if I had the money. The entire show, Richard III, yeah. Yes, but I think, with all due respect, Beryl is getting a little old lady-ish for that part now, and I must be very careful here. I think she should be the first to admit that she could have done it beautifully when she was younger. She has that sort of eccentricity. It would have been wonderful. Can you imagine the late Irene Handel? Yes. Tittering her way out of the TARDIS. I mean, Beryl would have done it beautifully. But, yes. I'm trying to think of someone now who would fit into that category. Yes. Yes.
What about yourself? Who would you like to see?
Me?
Yeah. Last question. Who would you like to see as a female doctor? I mean, Dave mentioned us, I mean, you'd be great sustaining a second panel and straight after the day after. Can we just show our appreciation, please? Right, go a short lunch break.
Oh, look at that. That's really experience. One hand. Has a press job. Wow. And this is the blackmail one, is it, that's coming up there on video?
Well, I put this gun in.
The capital city of Wales, Cardiff. We'd like to introduce you now to the people who will be making up our next panel for the day. I've loosely called it a Blake 7 panel, but you could just as easily call it a Doctor Who panel. First of all, a lady that you will remember from the Two Doctors, and a lady that you will know as the baddie from Blake 7. She was a horrible person in Blake 7 as Servalan. In real life, she's the exact opposite. Would you please welcome the lovely Jacqueline Pearce. And secondly, the very thing that this lady next to me ended up destroying. The man behind the voice of Zen, of Aurak, of Slave, and countless other voices. Will you please welcome Peter Turner.
Nice to see you. Nice to be able to see you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I also introduce you to the gentleman who will be hosting the panel for you for this afternoon, Mr. Tony Galichon.
2/3 of the candidates over the British office, at least I do. Wow. Okay, you're happy now,
Yes, I am.
Microphone? You've got your microphone and I've got my... There's plenty of votes coming out, I tell you.
Where does one start on a panel like this? I suppose you start at the beginning, I suppose, wouldn't you? How did you do it? I know you've both been on panels before, but Jackie, how did you start out? Where did you go? It wasn't that long ago.
Yes, it was a very long time ago. It was something I always wanted to do. And I am a firm believer if there is something that you want to do, it decides your course in life, you don't decide it. So that's what happened to me. Pardon, darling?
Come back to the microphone a bit, dear, or boom.
Am I really? Can you hear?
That's fine, as you are, darling.
Fine.
Seriously,
Thank you,
don't mind me
darling.
saying so.
Of course I don't mind, darling.
We're great friends, really.
I'm worried seeing it. What about yourself, Peter?
What about myself? Well, how did I start? Well, at a very early age, I was born, and I started in Rev on Hastings Pier, believe it or not.
Should have stayed there, darling.
Well, I could say so, it appears. Anyway, the sea was a bit rough and I was a bit seasick. But, no, seriously, I was a student in a rep company and I learnt my craft by sweeping the stage, holding the prompt book and getting my lines occasionally and I was told off. But that's how I started.
Right, what was it? Moving on to TV, I mean, this big break, what was your big break?
I'm still waiting for it.
I've broken mine.
How did you start out by seeing TV, I mean?
After I left drama school, which was RADA, I think it was only about 6 months I was out of work and I got a television play. And I was doing very well when I first started. And I think I blew it in a big way because I went to America when I was about 23. My career was going very well. And I stayed in America for 3 years, and I never really recovered from that yet. So, I don't know, for me there hasn't been a big break, it's just been a succession of work, really.
Well, I think the big break came for me, well I say big break, sort of fairly big break, when I was demobbed from the army, and I met Ivan Novello, who you may have heard of. And he offered me a part in a play that had been running at the Palace Theatre, I think the Palace, called The Dancing Years. And he was sending it out on tour, and he asked me to play the lead, because he happened to see me in a Forces show. And we didn't know he was in the audience, and he was a very big impresario in those days. And he came backstage afterwards and said, "We enjoyed your performance very much. Would you come and see me afterwards, you know, have dinner with me at the Metropole Hotel?" This was in Brussels, believe it or not. And so I did. I was in uniform, so I didn't really take it all in, you know, I was a bit sort of like that. I thought, well, yes, okay, I'll go. And anyway, he offered me the part of the second lead in a musical play. And when I was demobbed, this is what I did. And from then, that was my break, really, I suppose. And then I met Sir Noel Coward, he wasn't Sir then in those days, after that, and I got a lovely part in a play of his at the Cambridge Theatre.
Oh, I'm so envious, Fudders.
Are you really?
Yes.
Oh, shall I
He's one of
tell
my heroes.
Ah, no.
Yes.
Dear boy. And, and I must tell you, were any of you here yesterday when I told the story?
No.
No? Well, do you mind if I tell it again to people who haven't? Well, my first introduction to Noel was when I went to an audition for this particular play called The Ace of Clubs. And it was a musical, and I was to be one of the 3 juvenile delinquents. It was a long time ago, so my hair was better than that.
You haven't changed then?
I haven't, no. Anyway, how kind. Come and see me.
No, I meant you were still a delinquent.
Oh, no. You see, it happens all the time, doesn't it? Yes, lovely. Of course, other fun. So I was asked to go to the stage door of the Palace Theatre in London And I was ushered in to the presence of Noel with a long cigarette holder and hat on one side, and two other lads who had already got the parts, you see. They wanted three boys, and I was to be the third. Well, I didn't know then. I had to have an audition, and I had to go round a piano with Noel's pianist and these two lads who had already done the actual number. I looked at the lyrics, and Noel said, "Now, Peter," said, "would you just play those, do those lyrics for those boys, and Rob will play the piano." So I said, "Yes, sir." And so I did, terrified really. And so we did the thing, two verses, and then he took me by the hand and the arm, and he led me over the top, the front of the Palace Theatre stage, and he said, "Peter, we'd love to have you with us. How little do you want?" It's absolutely true. I'd have done it for nothing.
Of course you
Wouldn't I?
Of course you
I got £14 a week, actually.
A lot of money in those
A lot
days.
of money in those days.
He's very old.
Yes. And the next question.
Next question, Matthew, follow something like that. You've been to conventions, you've been to a few conventions in England?
No, only about 2 or 3 in England.
What, mainly like 7?
Yes.
What about America? What do you both think of American convention?
Jackie. Your privilege.
I've only done about 5.
You're lucky, I've only done 2.
Have you really?
Mm.
And I find them totally fascinating.
Yes, and I do too.
I do. I love America. It's a wonderful opportunity to go. I suppose they're not that much different to the English conventions, are they? Except on a much grander scale.
Much grander scale and much, how shall I put it, very exhausting for the guests. You never stop.
You never stop.
They have breakfast with you. The fans
They
pay.
do. They auction you off to have breakfast.
That's it.
And I'm a monster before midday.
Darling, you're a monster anyway. What a lovely monster. No, seriously, that is true. They pay to have breakfast with you. It all goes to charity, of course, but they're so rich, aren't they?
Yes, they are incredibly rich. Yes, they are.
Fat, rich Americans.
Yes.
Who have nothing to do but go to conventions and loving every moment. I think there's something missing in their lives.
Yes, there is.
Don't you think?
Yes, I'm sure there is.
It's not breakfast. But, well, I'm glad you found them fascinating, Jackie, because I think they're very daunting. I mean, I was terrified when I first went. And well, as soon as I got off the plane, and I was met by a retinue of people, I had my wife and my small son with me, and we were taken to have a drink, and one of them came to me and said, "Oh, Peter," he said, "we're having a cabaret tomorrow night, and you'll do something for the cabaret, won't you?" I said, "You want me to do something in the cabaret? What do you want?" "Oh, do something, you know, do your piece." So that was my first initiation. I thought, my God, what am I going to do? And so I did something, obviously, but that was how you're faced, you see, like that. I wasn't told about this at all, so I had to mug it all up and do it. It was great fun, but a challenge, and I loved it.
Yes, I did too. I did it once on a Doctor Who convention, the only one I'd done. In Chicago, I was asked to appear on a cabaret, and I didn't think I had anything suitable at all. But John Levine, who was a great friend, that was when I first met him, and he's become one of my closest friends, and he said, "Come on, Jackie, and I'm sure there's something you can do." And at an early period in my life, I'd written some poetry, and he actually got me out there reading my own poetry. So I was very grateful to him for it.
I didn't know you wrote poetry.
No, this was at a period in my life, shortly after we finished the last series of Blake 7. I went to America, I was very ill, I ended up in a medical home. How does one pass the time? I wrote some poetry. And yes, it was, actually. And so I read those poems.
You're very clever, my word. I only read poetry that other people write. But it's fascinating. What sort of poetry?
Well, as I say, I was in a medical home and I was having a nervous breakdown, so I was in a great deal of pain. And,
Can you remember anything now?
Actually, most of what I wrote needs a very mature audience.
I see. Next question, please. Sorry?
I think he actually wants to hear it.
No, this is. Usually I bring my poetry to conventions with me now, but I haven't got it with me, so I'm afraid I can't this time.
That's all right.
Perhaps next time.
Have you got any questions?
spark off each other. Good. I'm very up to date, you see. What was my favourite part? Well, I don't know really. Any good part. I think my favourite part was a part played by Peter Ustinov. And I played it on tour. And it was called The Love of Four Colonels. And I've probably never heard of it. It's a very funny play. Do you know The Love of Four Colonels? No.
I've had it.
Well, I pass on that one. No, seriously, it's a very good play, and it's almost a pantomime. It's the modern story of Cinderella, virtually, and you know, and it's his character, and Peter played it in the West End. He goes into disguise as the Wicked Witch, and he does about 5 or 6 different disguises, and it's very good. I think that's my favourite part. But otherwise, it's a farce part. I'm very low comedy, you see, really. Aren't I, Jackie?
Yes, you are, John.
And I love comedy parts. I love your comedy parts. Yes, that answers your question, does it? Yeah. Any more questions? Voices for Zen, until they've found that they liked, particularly one I did, which is more or less my own voice. And Aurak, I has copied Derek Farr to a certain extent, and Slade was my own invention, helped by the writing of Chris Boucher's, a sort of cringing sort of character. But it's fascinating trying to get the voices. Okay.
Somebody else was saying about it.
Yeah, Jackie, do you remember anything about when you worked on the Avengers?
Not a thing.
No.
Just before most of you were born. No, I don't remember at all.
What about the Ham films? Do you remember those?
I do remember those because they were the first films I'd done, and I loved every second of it. It was a lovely studio. Have you ever done this?
Never done a ham.
Oh, they were wonderful fun. Churned them out in 6 weeks. It was a very good training ground. They were appalling. I mean, I was supposed to be a Victorian girl, and I looked as I just walked off the King's Road in Chelsea.
Which of course you had.
Indeed, I had.
No, I've never done a big feature film like that. It must be lovely, Jackie.
Well, I wouldn't call those big feature films.
No, sorry, small budget films.
Small budget. Yeah,
White Mischief was the big feature, wasn't it?
It was a small budget film too.
Was it really?
And I did feature quite bigly in it.
I can't remember what you played.
If I took my clothes up, would that remind you?
Cabaret later.
You couldn't afford me, honey.
I could. On my proceeds from Blake 7. Any more questions? We're going mad. Any more questions?
Who chose your dresses and things for Blake 7?
Who chose my dresses?
Yeah.
Well, we had different designers all the way through. And I suppose my dresses really came into their own in the 3rd season with a designer called Nicky Rocker. Well, did you know that?
Oh,
He's
Nicky,
dead.
yes.
Did you know Nicky was dead?
No?
Yes. Who was unfortunately not
Really?
dead. Yes.
How long ago?
A couple of years.
No, I had no idea.
And I liked working with Nicky. We had enormous run-ins, actually. We used to quarrel quite a lot because Nicky used to design for Shirley Bassey. And I think he thought that Servalan was Shirley Bassey in space.
You were Bernie Shasty, though.
Which I didn't think she was.
No.
So some of those costumes worked, but quite a few required, I don't know what, to be able to get away with wearing them with some sort of semblance of dignity. There were a couple that made me look like a canary.
I had terrible trouble with my costumes. I didn't know which pants to wear. It was awful. Or rank or slave. Any more questions?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Pierce, going back to the Hammer horror film, just very recently I just saw Plague of the Zombies of the reptiles you appeared in. What do you think of your character actually being wearing the reptile, the type of character? And also, what do you think of your being beheaded in Plague of the Zombies?
Well, when I went along to see the producer, he said, "You have a marvellous face for films," and then cast me as a zombie. I was never quite sure how to take that. And he thought I was such a good zombie that I would make an even better reptile. But they had to take a, what do you call it? Impression of my head in order for it to be cut off. I'll never forget that as long as I live. I was very claustrophobic in those days. And they poured plaster of Paris over you, don't they?
They do, yes.
Yes, with just your nostrils so you can breathe, and it sets, and it takes quite a long time. And it got harder and harder, and I was retreating more and more from reality, which has always been a problem of mine, whether I've got plaster of Paris on my face or not.
You haven't any now, have you done?
And I panicked just before it had set, and they had to take it all off and then do it all again. I had just married, I was newly married at the time for the first time. My husband held my hand all the way through. But I found it a really distressing experience, actually. It was very strange the next day to go into makeup and see my head up on a shelf.
Morning. Freddy Krueger must have a terrible side. No from Jackie, because I didn't have to learn my lines, I just had to speak the parts, read the thing, and I had no problems, because I wasn't seen, you see. I mean, it was all straightforward as far as I was concerned. Because I had no trouble with the scripts, I just didn't question anything, I just said the damn things, didn't I?
It's probably the wisest thing to do.
Well, I'm very easygoing, really. But, I mean, mind you, if it came to the point where I disagreed with something, I would definitely say so. But on this particular Blake 7 scripts and everything, for then Aurak and Slave, the computers, I had no qualms at all. I certainly would come back because I didn't appear, so I'm not typecast. And, money in the bank, why not? Yes?
Anybody else? Hello, yes, sir. Sir?
Yes. Yes, I did. Yes,
It's a long pause.
That's quite a difficult question because I like to be as honest as I can without being undiplomatic, and I'm not famous for my diplomacy. Paul and I ran into problems on a personal level in the 4th series, and I think it showed. I think the series suffered as a result of it. I have no quarrel at all with Michael. In the 3rd series, I loved working with Paul, and I thought we did good work together. Something happened, I feel, to Paul in the 4th series, when I think that Paul became more important to Paul than the series became. That's just my personal opinion. I'm saying this in public, I would say it to Paul, so I'm not saying anything out of school. But I think that's why the series fell down, because I think personal egos got in the way of the whole, and that's always a dreadful mistake. And it's very difficult anyway, because I think you have to take your work very seriously, but not take yourself so seriously. And there is a danger when you're doing something like Blake 7, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not very important, but in my personal scheme of things, is very important. And I'm obsessive, really, in believing that you must give the best you have to anything that you are doing at any given time. And I'm not just including the work, I apply that to every area of my life, or it's a belief I have. Whether or not I succeed, you would have to ask my nearest and dearest. But there is a great danger if the ego gets in the way, because then it stops you doing the best that you can. You're seeing things in a very narrow way. And I felt that that's what happened.
Did you meet Patrick?
Oh, yes, he was in the 2 Doctors that I did.
Oh,
he was here to Colin.
But he's
Oh, lovely man.
Smashing. Very dry humour,
Very dry, very wise man, very kind.
Yes, it's great fun.
He used to talk about God a lot and life after death, which he was a great believer in.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Bless his heart.
He'd had an experience that he told me about some time before, which had left him totally convinced in life after death. And that's something I've given a great deal of thought to. I'm sure every thinking person does. There comes a point in your life when you say, what is it all about, and is there something else? And Pat was a great help to me. So I'm sure he's up there now, having a very good time.
Looking down. And,
yes, he is.
I'm sure he is.
Keeping a place warm.
No, I agree with that, actually. I do. We're getting very deep now, aren't we?
I think we should. I think that's what it's about. This is my feeling, actually.
It is Sunday, after all.
It's Sunday. Yes.
Okay, next question.
There's something there. Did you have one?
Tell me, what are the mechanics of differences between Servalan and Chesini,
Well, I think when I came to play it, very little at all. I'm afraid to say. They'd already cast another actress, and she dropped out, so they designed the costume and they designed the wig. So I had to put somebody else's wig and costume on. I can't remember who the actress was, but I know she was quite a lot older than me. I would never have chosen that costume. And I think what had happened was she was another strong lady, so they got me, and I did another strong lady, and it wasn't very different. It was just Servalan with another costume, a different costume and wig on. And if I did it now, I would approach it differently, but I think that was an opportunity that I was given that I didn't make the best of, actually.
Productions, actually, because I love my character, terrible old, dirty old man in a hamburger bar, and I couldn't go around my local pub with all this beard thing, And my wife wouldn't go out with me at all. I was an outcast for about 6 months. No, seriously, it was a lovely series to make, and a very good director, Gareth Gwenland, who was head of comedy at that time. He's also produced, actually, this new show called Waiting for God with Graham Crowden. He's no longer head of comedy, but he's now a senior producer of comedy programmes from BBC. But no, it was a great show, and we were very happy. Michael Williams was lovely to play against and opposite, and so with Anne Bell and Jennifer, and Holly Aird. Do you know Holly Aird at all?
I know the name.
No, lovely little actress. But, you know, it's all gone, unfortunately. I have lots of letters saying when are they going to repeat it, or are they going to do another series. So, there we are. It's like dear old Blake Seven, we don't know. Doctor Who, we don't know, do we?
Still get a lot of letters from fans.
Yes?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
every week.
Yes, so do I.
From all over the world.
Peter, I just had a little argument down there. Were you in Campion?
I was in Campion. Yes, I was in Campion.
All right.
I played a butler in Campion. I did
Guess
a-
what?
Do you remember? That's right. I was telling somebody at lunchtime. It's a lovely episode. Well, I did 2 episodes, and we were on location for a fortnight in Suffolk. Murray Watson was my boss, I think he was. Was he my boss? I'm sure he was. No, it was a very nice series, and Peter Davison's a smashing chap.
Did you ever see him as playing the Doctor?
Oh yes, I did.
Did you think he was?
Before I knew him, before I worked with him.
Did you think he was?
I liked him, yes I did. I did like him very much. No, it was great. Yes, and more. How can that work?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
They've also got a very strict policy on video releasing, haven't they?
Good. Well, that's why we don't get demanded. Well, 55 pence. Well, you want to write up about it. I mean, you know, write in the Radio Times.
I think they have said any future releases would all be in episodes. Not to hear releases. It's just that they released them in Australia beforehand, and it's easy on doing the time of the back together.
Come in. So we go out. Push it over. Looked at us once and went out. Now, any more questions? Little letter. Yes.
If you were given a chance, would you work with Colin and Fraser again?
Oh, any day of the week. Yes, I would, with great pleasure.
I would work with them for the first time.
Yes, I would.
Lovely. Anybody else? We'll send it on, don't worry.
What was
somebody else?
Moondial like, working on that?
I loved doing Moondial. It was a wonderful location. We were shooting in an 18th century stately home, which was wonderful, so you just had to put the frocks on and you were already there. It wasn't a very well-written script. As far as I was concerned, I played 2 characters. The 18th century woman was quite well written. There was a wonderful scene in the mirror room. Did you see the series? That was a wonderful scene. I don't know what it was doing in a children's television show because it was so erotic. Or it could have been if we'd really been allowed to let our hair down.
I wish I'd seen it.
Oh, it was wonderful. Wonderful. But I think the director bottled out because it should have been shot really in close-up to show what I was doing, and he sort of went for a medium-long shot.
Can you give an example later?
Yes, I can. I give you an example now, darling.
Oh, come on.
It was about a woman who was in... She was supposedly...